837 Big 550 KTRS. David Stokes is with us. He is with the Show Me Institute. Always a friend of the show. David Stokes, welcome back, Big 550 KTRS.
Good morning, McGraw. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, David.
This morning we're having a conversation both on the air and off the air about the story in the newspaper, stltoday.com. Maplewood has rejected Snuggle Me Closely. What's the name of it? Embrace Me Now?
Embrace Me Now.
It's a business that wants to open up in Maplewood, and they rejected the business license, and the reason why was they said it's weird.
And this is infuriating. I mean, this is if you, to the listeners out there who disagree with me, who disagree with the Show Me Institute, who disagree with the very limited government philosophy.
Yes.
Let me point out, this is what you get with big government. I don't care if it's the federal level, the state, or as local as the Planning and Zoning Board in Maplewood. When you believe that government should have so much control over our economy and our lives for good, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, random big government listener. For good, you think government does a lot of good. Well, you know what? You also get this. You also get members of a Planning and Zoning Board who reject a business outright just because they think it's weird. This is infuriating. This is, if you have concerns over potential nefarious activities, as they outright say in the article, then you, like the massage therapy business that they compare it to, you can have it register with the Maplewood Police Department, and the Maplewood Police Department can be aware that they need to sort of follow it, maybe check in to make sure that that prostitution or other type isn't going on there. That's okay with me.
I mean, they also have to make sure that there's not prostitution going on at the auto mechanic store down the street.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So they can be aware that this potential exists, and the police can take action or just follow. The idea that you would outright reject it because some members of the Planning and Zoning Board are uncomfortable with it, even though it seems to fit all other zoning requirements, is infuriating and a perfect example of the harms that big government does in all of our lives.
As odd as I think it is, and I think it's extremely odd.
We all think it's weird.
Yeah, and I found out they're currently in my neighborhood doing business. So, it's not bothering me. It doesn't affect my life. I think it's odd. And McGraw made the point, well, why can't they do it? So is there any legal action that this guy could take against Maplewood?
Yes. I mean, he'll have to, if they wish to continue, they'll have to try to go to the city council that could override the Planning and Zoning Board, probably with a supermajority requirement that I would find unfortunately unlikely, would be my prediction that I'd be happy to be wrong about. And then after that, there is the potential you can sue once you've gone through the whole regulatory process and take it to court. And I hope they do. But you know what? You're talking thousands and thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars of added costs just to open a small business now. It's just so infuriating that we give local government, state government, federal government, this much power over our lives.
It isn't just a couple of people on the zoning commission in Maplewood. It was a unanimous decision, which is even scarier. So these people, anything they don't like, they can just arbitrarily say, I'm sorry, I don't like it. And your point is, and you've brought this point up before, and this is even though we're talking about this hugging company, which granted is weird or whatever, but they will regulate you or zone you or fee you or just stop you to the point where it costs too much money for this small business guy to fight City Hall. And so who's got thousands of dollars to go fight it? He can win it, but it's going to cost him $100,000. And so the city wins by default because the guy doesn't have the money to fight it.
Well, that's very well put, McGraw, and it's a frustrating example. Planning and zoning is not supposed to be about opinion. So if something fits within a planning and zoning rule, I believe you need to allow it, even if you find it personally odd.
Right.
And I would say I would be highly unlikely to patronize a snuggling business.
You were going to say embrace a snuggling business.
I should have said that. You're more clever than I. But the idea that just because I find it odd, or the unanimous members of the Planning and Zoning Commission in Maplewood find it odd, that they reject it. I mean, this is the city that took people's homes via eminent domain to put in a Lowe's and a Sam's and a Walmart. So maybe we know what the priorities are in Maplewood.
That's a great point. What's more offensive, taking somebody's house to put in a hardware store next to 6 other hardware stores, or allowing a business that allows you to hug people. I think the Zoning and Planning Commission needs a couple of hugs myself. All right, so piggybacking on this, what's this hotel, motel, bed and breakfast tax?
Well, there's a very interesting controversy in the city of St. Louis right now, in that bed and breakfast owners, and I understand from the Post-Dispatch story that there's about 15 or 16 bed and breakfasts in the city of St. Louis. They're very upset because they're being reassessed this year as commercial property instead of residential, meaning that because they're operating a business out of there, that they're going to have to pay commercial assessment rates, which are higher than residential assessments.
Right.
So they're very upset about those tax increases. In fairness to the city, they're just increasing the parts of the B&B that's used for business purposes.
Okay.
So the part where the people live only is not being assessed commercially. And we wrote a blog post on this at showmedaily.org, which I highly recommend. I think it was a well-written post. It received a number of very interesting angry comments from bed and breakfast owners who are upset at us for sort of defending the city here. If you're operating a business, you should out of your home, then that portion of it should be assessed commercially. I don't think that we should be subsidizing bed and breakfast as opposed to other types of hotels.
Yeah. What about Airbnb? Isn't that the same thing as a bed and breakfast?
No, I mean, there is a legal definition for what a bed and breakfast is in a hotel and Airbnb. There is no definition for Airbnb yet.
Right.
But it gets very complicated at that point. Like at what point, because you use Airbnb, should your house be assessed commercially? I would propose that if you're doing Airbnb 6 months a year and constantly doing it, then you probably should be assessed commercially. If you're doing it once or twice a year, then no, I don't think you should. It's a very difficult issue. And it comes down to, though, the Show Me Institute doesn't like this commercial assessment because we want the city of St. Louis to get a whole bunch of new taxes. It's just that to try to be consistent, we've always supported expanding the tax base as much as possible so that rates can be lowered. And in this case, I think it's time to lower the city's commercial surcharge property tax, which is way too high. And this is also a baby step towards hopefully expanding that tax base to get rid of the earnings tax eventually.
So you think the more people who are taxed, everyone pays their fair share, the taxes go down. You start exempting this big developer, that bed and breakfast, this guy, all of a sudden they get tax breaks, then you're picking and choosing winners.
Precisely. And it's something we've been commenting on probably since the first time I ever appeared on the McGraw Show. But it's good economics would be to set that tax base as wide as possible, and particularly in a way for like property tax base, which are less harmful to local economic growth than local income taxes. So make that switch. I don't want bed and breakfast to pay more money because I don't like bed and breakfast. I want the tax base to be wider so that they can cut more harmful taxes.
I think bed and breakfasts are weird. I think they should be banned outright.
Right, well, the crazy thing is there's probably people in certain neighborhoods in the city who would say, go to their alderman. Oh, I don't want a bed and breakfast in our owner-occupied neighborhood. You got to ban this.
Right.
And the alderman would, I hope they don't do that, and I don't believe anybody has, but they would have that power in the city to stop it just because we give too much power to politicians.
It's that argument, somebody doesn't like the adult bookstore that sells the videos and the whatever else and the lingerie, right? And those are always fights. But when it's all said and done, you have to allow it because it's a legal business. Was it Florissant that didn't want the Hooters? Remember that on, was it Florissant or Ferguson? One of those towns up in North County was fighting the Hooters. And they didn't want that terrible company Hooters in there. And the city's like, we have no choice. It's a restaurant. We have to let them in.
Its reputation might be worse than the actual what goes on in Hooters.
Right.
Where you get overpriced chicken wings.
I think they should put the Hug Me in the Hooters thing. That would really take off.
That would be probably very popular.
A couple of hugs and some chicken wings all at the same time. Holy mackerel! All right, David Stokes. When can we read you? When can we see you?
We have a lot of information on the abuses at local government that's gotten so much attention at the speeding ticket example over the past 6 months, and that's properly being addressed. But it's time to address these other abuses as well. At showmeinstitute.org.
David Stokes, have a good week. John Beal Roofing, latest